Hello, and welcome back to the Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan, and I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts. You know, the usual lot. Brett,
Hello.
Wyatt,
Hello.
and Alex.
Hello.
You might recognize it's not the same Alex. Don't worry, he had to get sent back to the shop, and we got a Alex 2.0 is here now.
New and improved. I don't know what you mean. I'm here every week.
It's the same Alex. It's the same.
He's been programmed to think
same memories. All you know. One got uploaded into the other.
Yeah.
I know what you do
all
every
of our
week.
Inside jokes. Everything.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Pretend like I look and sound no different.
Because he doesn't.
Yes.
I mean, why would he?
Exactly.
This
is all
Why
AI changing my looks through the camera.
Yeah. It's new Discord tech.
Alex. There's nothing going on.
Well, we're talking about this because we don't want to talk about video games, obviously. Like, why would we want to do that?
Hate those.
Disgusting. All right.
Hey, if you want me to talk about comic books, I can also do
that.
This is a video game podcast. We talk about video games here, and for some reason I have OBS on the wrong window, so we're gonna fix that. But it's video game time. Is everyone having a pleasant gaming week? Is that what's going on this week, or is it a bad one?
I haven't played a lot of games this week. I've been very busy.
Yeah, same. So we're
me too. I've been making up for it this weekend though.
Yeah. This is why we have a buffer window of we don't do what we're playing all the time. We do it like once every 3 weeks because then we have time to talk about the last 3 weeks of video games.
Yeah.
We also have time to talk about controversy.
Well, that's not every 3 weeks. That's every
week.
Sometimes every day.
Often every day.
Often.
Because for some reason the games industry just cannot sit down and make a video game. Someone has to do something that other people dislike.
Is it bad that I can't place what you're about to bring up? Like, I'm like, which one is it?
Because there's been too many. Yeah. There's such a wide selection.
There's a wide breadth of things this time. I'm going to start us off on the smaller news. The news that isn't going to, I think, lead to a 15-minute discussion. Though it is possible, because Brett and I like Nier a lot.
Oh, Brett, I'm going to talk about this. This is so sad.
You have yet to play Nier Automata.
Yeah.
But I am sure you followed the saga of this individual posting on Reddit as if they were lost on the internet and didn't really know how to use it, claiming to be some like young child who had been playing not young child, but like a teenager who doesn't play games very often, playing a game of Nier Automata and finding a hidden area outside of a boss fight, which was far more advanced than any other areas that people have found, to the point where they fooled the internet openly for a month. Because it's been revealed now this was a mod. This is a mod that a team has made with a bunch of new modding tools that have been released for Nier Automata, which allow a level of control that is insane compared to what you could do in that game before, because it was mostly simple things like, hey, we can change monster positions, we can add a new bit of map here, but it can't do anything fancy and you can't interact with it. Now you can do all of that. You can do everything, and you can animate it and have cool, fancy floating spires twirl into your world. And Yoko Taro himself played into this, which was perfect.
What an asshole.
he put a post out on his Twitter saying, if you're curious about whether or not this is a announcement of something, check my profile. And in his profile is a phrase that says, I don't talk about my projects. Talk to Sony. It's hilarious.
Oh god.
I love that he got involved with this and was just messing with people. A very Yoko Taro thing to do.
That's so funny. Oh my god.
But hey, the mod tools are now public, so it's been a cool thing. From what people have gathered, the reason it was not immediately shared is just because it's very finicky and wasn't necessarily fully ready for a public unveiling, so they just used it to do a little bit of a hype ARG thing, and I think a lot of people are sad that it's not actually an announcement of Drakengard 4 or something.
Because it was like a lot of things that people who are fans of Drakengard were like waiting, like, why aren't these things mentioned more in the Nier games? And it just had a bunch of like really like eighth level of the like lore tesseract lore stuff, and it like. But now it's clearly that no, it's just made by a bunch of psychopaths that are just as into the lore as all the other people because they are those other people.
Yep.
Which hey, at least it's still a cool thing that came from it, and it wasn't just like nobody got blue boxed here, and we're all just waiting on an answer.
I was thinking about
Yeah.
that. I was thinking about
But
that.
This went on the perfect amount of time.
Yes, I could still see people being like mad about it because not a lot of people screw around with mods comparatively. Like the amount of like players that are willing to mod their game versus will not touch mods ever is pretty drastic.
Mhm.
So I could see a lot of people that just are waiting for the next Yoko Taro Draconeer game being a little bit salty about that.
Yeah,
But I
especially
only
because
figured
this is
this
like,
out in the last like week, so I don't really care all that much. I
yeah,
just thought it
because
was
Nier is not like a
cool.
moddable franchise generally. It's not.
Yeah.
Because you can make a mod for any game that's not like locked online, and generally you can do some things, but you're super limited in what you can do unless you have access to tools like what have been now made for Nier Automata that allow you to really go in and granularly change a lot of complicated things. So the fact that they were able to do this is super cool. A lot of fun things, and I'm very curious to see if we're gonna get like a big mod project out of this because it's a franchise that traditionally doesn't have it, but a lot of people are super passionate about Nier, so I'm very interested. We'll see. All right. I think the next one that we'll talk about, the next little controversy we've had, is that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic has been paused. I'll use kind wording here. A spear who was handling the KOTOR remake apparently went to a like shareholder showcase for LucasArts and a few other large companies that this game involves, and a spear was apparently very happy with how far they were along. Aside from the fact that this game was originally slated to apparently have come out next year in 2023, and it would not have been ready at the level of development they were doing until 2025.
Yeah.
Notably, development on this likely started last year.
Mm-hmm.
Espire is also a studio that hasn't done a lot of regular games. They do porting work generally, and a lot of.
Have they ever done a full-on game?
I want to say they have, but I think it's been. I'll double check while we're talking about this.
I applied to work there, and I did some research, and I don't think that they have, but I could be wrong.
I feel like it's
I'll double check. Yeah,
stuff, if anything.
They've worked on most of the Star Wars things that have released somewhere. Yeah. They did, I think, single-handedly develop Myth Force, which is like a odd little JRPG type thing. Or not JRPG, roguelike type thing.
Gun to my head, you couldn't get me to guess what that game was.
Yeah, well, I think it's Epic Store exclusive. So
Dead on Arrival is the other way to say that.
Well, especially if you don't have an announcement about it, because then I feel like no one's gonna find your thing. Yeah. But they've done a lot of work on a lot of different games. Like you can see that they've worked on stuff like Layers of Fear, Civilization, as like side studios. So it's a very sizable amount of things that they've worked on. It's just not generally full releases that they are handling.
I don't want to like say that I doubt that they can handle a full release because they have worked on a ton of stuff, so they might be able to. But definitely, like, I could see how they need.
It's a jump.
Time. Yeah,
it's a big jump,
and it's a very high profile jump.
Yeah, Old Republic is a super high profile game. If it's not handled well, people are going to be very angry. And guess what? People are very angry.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not. It's worth pointing out, and I don't. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan. I don't know if this part was fact or rumor or whatever, but like the amount of miscommunication between the devs and the higher ups.
Yeah, so like this was
insane.
Me speculating as to what happened. Is where I think this comes from. Which I'll restate it for people listening. So in the thread we were talking about this, I was like, I think what could potentially have happened here is there was a miscommunication about whether or not this was a remake or a remaster, and some executives may not have really paid attention to the difference, and this was being advertised as a remake and not a remaster. Probably because it's a
remaster.
23-year-old game.
Yeah.
So, I think it's not like unlikely that this would have been should be a full remake. But KOTOR is still largely playable, and largely up to a lot of modern standards. It still looks pretty good. It still plays pretty well. So if you're remaking it, you have to do it really well. And I'm betting that what was happening here is they aimed for that mark. They were like, we're going to remake this and it's going to be really good. And what ended up happening is they're just way over scope. Like, they're super over whatever scope execs had laid out for this. And Aspyr, being a company that mostly handles ports, I would bet doesn't have the safety net of they can afford to work on this game for 3 years without a huge injection of money from LucasArts or someone. And likely that didn't happen. Because
it is worth pointing out that somewhere along the lines, because of this, it says on the Bloomberg article that we shared with each other to start, that on June 30th, Aspyr finalized a demo of the game, the vertical slice, for people who know what game development is, where it has like the basic, like, this is the how you would play the game if you were playing it, and probably just on like an open.
May not reflect an actual level of the game, but it tries to
Yeah.
show off all of the features and all of
It's
the
got the
systems.
gameplay loop. Yeah. The following week, the company fired design director and art director Brad Prince and Jason Miner, which is like, I don't like.
But that's how
no
that
matter
went.
who you work for, you have to do something wildly against.
Because you don't get rid of talent like that. Like, you don't throw away a person at a director position unless there's like major controversy generally. This is clearly they got fired because there was a huge problem. Like, there was a huge issue of either miscommunication or something, and obviously executives aren't going to get fired, so someone's got to go. Whether or not these people are responsible for this happening, super unknown. But as of now, Aspyr has stated this game is on hold. It is indefinitely not canceled. The word canceled has not been floated. It's been largely saying its future is uncertain. What is likely going to happen is it's going to be given to a different developer, is what LucasArts seems to be leaning towards. So,
and my question to you three is, what is worse when someone is like, oh yeah, no, this is outright canceled, or we have no idea?
I just want a confirmation that this is being given to a new developer.
Well, that's what I mean, though, right? Is that, like, in the state that it's in now, no one knows what's going on. No one knows its future, and that's almost worse than just being like, yeah, no, it's canceled.
Yeah.
Since we've already heard this on hold, though, I wouldn't be surprised if we hear more news. Because, like, there's games that I've followed that on hold is better news than I got about that game, but somehow it's been 6 years and no development updates have been given or something. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just me being hopeful, but I can hope that it's followed up on soon.
Yeah, I think we would have gotten more certain language if this was canceled. I hope if it does get canceled, we get that certain language very quickly and not find out 2 years from now that they decided, hey, no more game. Because I think everyone wants a KOTOR remake.
Yes.
Right?
I think that if the game is canceled, we may see a KOTOR remake in another 5 years.
Yeah.
People love it that much.
It's such an obvious, like, money-making
and it's
decision.
easy to fit into new Star Wars because it's so far removed from everything else that you can just slot it in. Like, it doesn't need any finagling. So
it's nothing.
Yeah, you literally keep the same story. You could keep the same voice acting and probably be fine because it's really good.
Yeah, some of those voice lines are a little crispy,
old
audio quality, but
a lot of the side characters probably would need to be revoiced. But I think most of the main cast is still up to not necessarily modern quality levels, but it wouldn't be out of place. Yeah,
it'd be good enough.
The question is whether or not you could do it better, and I think that's a really important question to ask.
And hey, at the very least, we're getting more information on this game than we've ever gotten on Beyond Good and Evil 2. So, it's got that going for it, I guess.
Yeah.
I just saw somebody talking about that a couple days ago, and I was like, why are we talking about this? You're showing the same footage they showed like 4 years ago.
The best way to sum up, if you're watching this on YouTube or something like that, the best way to sum up the information we know about Beyond Good and Evil 2 is this.
Yep. That's a really good,
Pretty
accurate portrayal of what's going on. That's honestly most of Ubisoft right now. We don't
I
really
saw
know
that there was-
what's
We just canceled a
happening.
bunch of projects, some of them you haven't even heard of before.
Yeah.
I saw a trailer for what's it called, Skull and Bones or something, and I was like, oh my god, that game exists still.
The iconic 001 Radio Skull and Bones arc. Don't you worry, you fit yet another piece into the puzzle.
I mean, I remember all of these things. I am Alex.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
Right, of course.
You
You're
just
all
gotta
caught up,
assimilate
of course.
Sorry,
as we're
just,
talking about it.
Need to go back in the database and
Mhm.
Yeah.
Rifle
Fetch
I
through.
those
do think
files.
though, in terms of like games being, because what this is, it's like teetering on the edge of something in development hell is the worry here, which is why I think why you asked the question, is this better than like
Yeah.
not hearing anything about it or whatever? And I think just like compared to anything in development hell, like you'll just have people that act almost like religious fanatics when Beyond Good and Evil 2 news, like somewhere in the air, feels like it's going to happen soon. It's like, and you really can't blame people that are waiting for a game like that because it's just like anything. I want anything. I want anything. And they'll just take like every single little spec they could take and run for a mile with it because it's like, what else? What else is there? Like for a while, it was even like that with the Elden Ring because they had the trailer and then literally nothing for like 2 years. But like this, at least it's like okay, uh, this is what's happening. We're running into some problems. Get ready to possibly never see us again. Which like the other thing you have to look about for this is okay, if this is getting kept alive, like is this game gonna be like the kind of development hell where it's like super sad, like iron lung levels of like barely being kept alive by like machinery and external like
Mhm.
wires and cogs, and like how much are these devs going to hate their lives working on this same project for like 10 years with no end in sight? And I would prefer over that. I just prefer like just a straight up like blank slate cancellation. Save those poor people so that they can work on other projects that they won't be slaving over for like 10 or 15 years with
Well-
no end in sight.
And think about it this way too. Like, if it's in a spot right now where it's just super over ambitious, the scope bottle was completely run dry, right? And so it's like, okay, we can't like we don't have the resources, we don't have the manpower. Isn't it better in the long term to wait? Because if you like just throw something out there and then it's garbage, this like long awaited remake of a game is garbage. How long do you have to wait before you get another shot at it? Right?
Yeah,
Before
yeah.
people are going to trust you with trying that again. isn't
Warcraft 3
it
Reforged.
exactly exactly? So isn't it better to just like, okay, we clearly are not in a good place to make this right now. Let's shelve this, and then when we get a team that maybe has a clear vision of the project or it has more money behind it, that's when we go for it, when we know it's the right time, versus, oh my god, let's just throw this out the door and people are going to be mad at us if it's not good, whatever, let's just get it out the door.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I got a
I
question.
think that's a good point. Go for
I got a
it.
question for you guys. So say the next news we hear is Aspire, I don't know how you say it. It's got a Y in it. That always confuses me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Anyway, say that the project isn't dead, but they're off it. It gets pushed to another studio. Is there a studio you guys think it might be likely to go to, or you would want to see it go to?
I think BioWare is
And BioWare
probably because BioWare made the original, but the confusing thing
BioWare
about
right
this, Aspire went on a BioWare hiring spree. They hired a ton of people that worked on KOTOR. So we're now in a very confusing spot of a lot of the people that they would want to work on it are at Aspire and can't work on it. So yeah,
Was the art director or whoever got fired? Do we know? Was that somebody of note?
I don't know. I did
definitely
not recognize their name.
I definitely read the article because I am Alex and expected to be here.
I definitely didn't join this podcast about 15 minutes before we went live.
I'm going to throw this out there. I am not making any speculations. I'm not saying this is definitely what happened. But we now have a project that no one knows where it's going. and there's a bunch of BioWare people working on it. Coincidence? I don't know. I'm just
Well.
saying, given the state that BioWare's been in for the past 5 years or whatever, I'm just saying. It's worth pointing out.
Yeah.
I am on the art director Jason Miner's LinkedIn page that was linked in the article.
Nice.
10 years and 9 months at BioWare for the original KOTOR.
Now, what if... Now here's the theory. What if they got fired to go work back at BioWare to make KOTOR?
This is somebody in the Spear Aspire. They got fired to save them. They got fired to save them.
I do
and the
wonder...
project. They're going back to BioWare. The game's getting shipped over to BioWare.
Listen, I'm just going where the
technically
KOTOR remake goes, man. That's
technically speaking, for things like benefits and whatnot, getting fired is usually better as long as it's not with cause. Because you get to keep, like, you get a big severance package and stuff like that. You get to keep a lot of things if that happens compared to quitting. Because quitting, like, you're resigning, you're going away. Getting fired is unexpected. You get a lot of benefits from that. So I wonder if this is like a big brain play. I highly doubt it. I think it's a ridiculous theory, but I would love if that were true.
This guy worked at BioWare for over 10 years. Worked at Spear for a couple of years, I guess. We'll see him again someday. He's not out.
He goes where the KOTOR remake goes. That's his that's the way of life for him, apparently. More power to him, I guess. More power to him.
Maybe this is like some sort of like hockey trade, you know? Maybe they hired on a lot of former
and again,
BioWare
this is
people,
all
and they
rampant
fired
speculation.
This is us messing around.
I'm making stuff up now.
Yep.
Why not?
I think a lot of studios actually could do a potentially good remake. I just think most of them would end up pretty different. Mm-hmm. Like, honestly, I think I'd pick like an oddball thing. Give it to Monolith Soft.
Oh, okay.
Give it to a studio that makes JRPGs that is familiar with party-based modern games, because Western developers sure as hell aren't.
No,
we don't make them anymore.
No.
So who's gonna do it?
It's hard to give the remake of a BioWare project to a non-BioWare studio, because they fill in such a unique like niche in the like, RPG space that, like, you know, and like you said, you give it to different studios, you're going to get different results, which isn't a bad thing, but I think oftentimes you're not going to get the BioWare feel, which is what people want. They want a remake of KOTOR because they love these characters, they love this story, they love this era of Star Wars, but they also just want a good BioWare game. And there's not a whole lot of other people out there that can really provide that right now. God knows they're
BioWare.
Even BioWare, you know?
I might say
it's
something.
Pretty much Spiders is left. It's giving us a somewhat like authentic BioWare feel.
This might be going out on a limb here. I might be saying something controversial.
Oh.
But in terms of like a KOTOR remake, to me, I have zero care about the way the like the combat and gameplay is.
Like, you don't need to remake that. You can do whatever you want.
The story is the best part about it, and it's a
great
story. I think
the thing that makes it such a challenge is that you can change the gameplay all you want, and I don't think that many people are going to be super mad. I think you can't get rid of the party dynamics. That's like the thing that has to stay. Yeah. So how do you change the gameplay and keep the party mechanics? Give it to a JRPG developer.
Have you guys played... who developed this? I think it was Crystal... No, it was not Crystal Dynamics. They made Avengers. That was a flop. That was bad.
Guardians of the Galaxy, is that what you're looking for?
Guardians of the Galaxy, Eidos Montreal, I think.
Eidos Montreal, yeah.
Yeah, have you guys played that?
Yep.
Yes, we did. We loved
it.
A
whole podcast episode about that game.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I mean, yes, I see now in my memory banks that...
Well, which is funny, because I don't think other Alex was in that episode.
Well, my point was that game I loved. It was fantastic, and I thought that the party dynamics in that game were better than any game that I can think of with that sort of gameplay.
Yeah, I get
most games that have really good party dynamics are games like, well, any BioWare game, and JRPGs, just that kind of game. And Guardians of the Galaxy it's a real actiony. I don't even know how to describe Guardians of the Galaxy. It's sort of a weird mix.
Third-person shooter action game.
Yeah, but I
Third-person
mean that.
shooter JRPG. That's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you told me the KOTOR remake was that game with Star Wars people slapped in
Star
it,
Wars skin on it.
Hey, I'd play
I
it.
love it.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because I'm totally open to like a crazy revision of that story. They have to keep the underground kind of pod racing. Whatever
Oh,
studio
yeah.
does
Racing?
it
Yeah.
has to keep the racing mini.
I don't know if you guys saw this, if you guys are Star Wars nerds like me, but I saw in the trailer for not Clone Wars, Bad Batch Season 2, there was something that looked suspiciously like swoop bike racing happening for about
Please.
10 frames.
Swoop bike racing. Oh, I would love that so much.
You know deep down in the pit of your stomach that it's just gonna be like some random throwaway scene. that
Oh
they're
yeah,
not racing
absolutely.
At all.
Yeah.
There's no way it's swoop bike racing.
That's
but
modern Star Wars.
Star Wars nerd in me was like, oh my god, is that a swoop bike? Am I seeing?
I think
swoop
that's the
bike
curious thing,
racing?
because like Bad Batch, I think is the show that could totally pull out swoop bike racing, and it wouldn't feel
Yeah.
weird. Because they pulled out
Yeah.
some wild stuff in
I
Clone
love
Wars and
it
Bad
so much.
Batch.
Although
So-
it is known to tease quite a bit. They teased there was rampant speculation in the first season that we were going to see Cal Kestis because it was on the same planet
Mhm.
and like that first planet, and they had like the same kind of like poncho on, so people were freaking out. They're like, just
Look,
kidding.
and then the same thing happened with Kenobi, and look where we are
Well,
now.
Let's not talk about Kenobi. I don't
The
want to
less
get
said about Kenobi, the better.
I don't want to raise my blood pressure too much tonight, so let's not talk about Kenobi.
That's fair. Yep. Yeah, I'm super curious about this, and this is actually, I think, because we were talking about Eidos, a good transition to talk about an article that came out on gamesindustry.biz talking about Square Enix's Western Studios being a train wreck in slow motion. This is a really interesting article that goes into a lot of talks about Eidos and Crystal Dynamics, and kind of goes into why Square Enix might be looking to get rid of them. And it's with
I thought they
one of the heads
already
of Eidos. It's not like a unknown people thing. Yeah, what were you gonna say, Alex?
Oh, I was just saying, did they already sell them, or did they?
They already
I
sold
may
them.
be behind.
This happened a couple months ago. Square Enix sold Eidos, Crystal Dynamics, and one other studio, Square Enix Montreal, which did like the Go mobile games, to I want to say it was THQ that picked them up.
It was Embracer Group.
Embracer Group,
yeah.
yeah. Embracer Group, which also owns THQ. That's why I was getting that mixed up. Embracer Group picked them up, and they're now developing for Embracer Group, presumably. So I think this is indicative of the things that are said in this article, is basically that Square Enix acquired these studios to work on things like Marvel's Avengers, but really didn't end up supporting them because of the fact that Square Enix is likely ramping up to be bought. This is a thing that's being speculated in this article that they're not certain about, but the thinking here is that Square Enix of Japan is the moneymaker. It's the thing that people are interested in acquiring. Square Enix West is not. It's not the part of it that makes a ton of money in Japan. It's not something that is interesting to Japanese studios. So the like nugget of information here is that Square Enix Japan is looking to maybe be acquired by a bigger group, or merge with a bigger group to kind of bump up their production capacity. But in order to do that, they cut the Western studios that weren't producing and making as much money because they're dead weight. They're trimming the fat.
The
So that's
Avengers
why they
guys,
sold
first of
for so
all.
low.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they made Guardians of the Galaxy. Like,
Yeah,
Which was great.
Yeah. It's hard to point exactly to where the bad seeds of Avengers development started, but I mean you could easily point to it being not getting enough support, not being managed properly by the thing that owns them, or
just a
whatever.
poorly conceived game. Like,
Yeah, from the start to finish. But also, Ryan, you might remember this is stage 1 of our nightmare scenario from a couple months back.
Yeah, this exactly is.
This is
way back
literally which now it's speculation, but now we're not the ones speculating it, which is a problem because we're
People
supposed to be
much
the
smarter
tinfoil
than
hat
us.
wearers. Yeah.
Are speculating that when we were doing it, it was a joke.
And now it's real.
Remind me again the full arc of your nightmare scenario.
Basically,
if you will.
the long and short of it is the last time that Square merged with Enix, a bunch of really cool people that did really cool things left to go do things on their own and kind of just like wallow in misery for a little bit until
Or
they
make
got
things that are locked
cool
to
thing.
Apple TV.
Yes, that also. Thank you, Hironobu Sakaguchi, you jerk. But you know, it was a different time then. You know, because it kind of in the years since that, the merger with Enix to make Square Enix, like, okay, yeah, the super big budget JRPG
It has
stuff.
since
Like, you
worked out pretty well.
you could feel the bigger budget increase for all their big titles. Like, they at least feel, you know, like super AAA level stuff. This is more of like, oh man, wow, we can't sustain doing this anymore because making games that are up to snuff with what people expect from us now in the 2020s is
Unsustainable.
it's unsustainable. You just can't do it because basically we've been spoiled. We can now expect too much by people that are claiming to push, you know, the cutting edge of gamer technology and stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, go through another merger, probably, maybe Sony or other, perhaps. I don't know why they would ever do that. I don't know. You know, and then that makes all the big Square Enix games exclusive to the Sony ecosystem. That means people
I
that
mean,
don't want that get to either suck it up or leave because it's happened before. And I don't know. Who knows? Because it's kind of similar to Square itself is similar to the PS1 era Square, where they're just kind of like, oh yeah, Einhander, Vagrant Story, yeah, whatever, like ever just random, like who even like what is who made that? Like 10 people just made this like weird, like fantastic looking game in like a year and just like farted it out onto a console for 6 people to play. That's great. Like the same like Valkyrie, the Elysium, I can't. I literally, for the life of me, I cannot remember the Tactics RPG that's coming out.
Diofield Chronicles.
I thank you. I can't
I'm
even like
pretty
comprehend the
excited
word
for
I was
those
going to
games.
say. But they're like they're cool, weird games, just like
Because
Square
they're
was kind of
different. This
pumping
is
out.
like
Yeah,
crazy stuff that we're getting.
exactly. They're like just different, super non sequitur stuff. Like kind of the same thing. Like you would never expect Square to make a shoot 'em up now, but they did in 1990, whatever, with Einhander. And right after that, they were like, "Oh, hey, we need more people to actually like make the things that are gonna make money
Make the
for us."
things
So,
and maybe buy the games. So they can
yes,
keep making them.
yeah.
There's
And
always
then,
that like push and pull of like, here's one for you guys, here's one for us, right? Like
mhm,
it's the same thing that movie directors go through a lot, where it's like, I remember Taika Waititi making the same comment where he Thor Ragnarok was coming on, he was like, this is for the big guys, and then Jojo Rabbit's for me, you know. And I feel
yeah,
like
yeah,
video games and specifically individual like video game developer personalities go through the same thing. It's like, this project is for the higher ups, this is for you guys. This weird little JRPG or whatever is for me and for people who like that.
well,
And you
yeah.
kind
Square
of
can
have to.
probably have as much funding as they want for all those with Final Fantasy 14 loan.
Hmm. Apparently, it is not enough with their questionable managerial skills.
Well, maybe it's Final Fantasy 7 taking up
Yeah.
all that money.
Mm.
Final Fantasy 7. Maybe it's Harvestella. Maybe Harvestella is where all the budget went. Yeah, I think this is just a really interesting situation, and this article is definitely something I'd recommend reading because it has a lot of interviews with various people that have been involved with Eidos and Crystal Dynamics and going into what they think might be the case here. The big breakdown of this is basically that Eidos had about 1,000 people, and the amount of money that Eidos' projects were making for Square was not enough to make Square a profit and pay for the people. And so I think this is the unfortunate reality of the situation, and that the budgets were too high for these games, the scope was too much, and something that the Eidos head says, Stephen Diastos, is that a lot of the team that was on Thief specifically were people that had never worked together before. It was mostly a new team and not veterans, because they hired a lot of people for that. They hired a lot of people that were in various genres and some like the original people from Thief. And so they kind of did a whole different process there, and that did not turn out well for them. And the thing they float for this is that it was a talented team. It just didn't have the experience working together as a cohort to make a game that quickly. And what they've said is that they think with another 9 months on Thief, they could have fixed basically everything. Because they knew about the problems. They knew what the issues were, and they were working on fixing them, and then they were like, this game has to come out this year. So I just think this is a really
go wrong.
a really curious situation. That's just unfortunate all around, and hopefully they get to make some cool stuff going forward. And we haven't heard about any like mass firings or anything, so I think they probably will be. But yeah, it's just such a strange place that these developers have found themselves in that I don't think it's easy to predict what's going to happen.
I'm sure Square Enix Montreal right now is also wondering what they're going to be named, since Square Enix doesn't own them anymore. Are they Embracer Group Montreal now?
I don't know. I don't know if they might just continue to be called Square Enix Montreal.
That would be kind of awesome if they just
hilarious.
kept it.
Especially if it was this like petty move, just like no, we're not changing the name. Screw you.
They're just gonna like start putting out crap games, tank the Square Enix name.
I do think the unfortunate reality of this deal is that probably Square Enix Montreal is the first to go if any of these studios go, because they made all the Go games and are not probably considered a high dollar studio. I hope they are. Like, I hope they stick around, because the Go games are really interesting, and maybe with an unfettered creative process, they could do a lot more and not be bound to mobile as a platform, or they could make something cooler that isn't bound to different dynamics, or maybe not an IP that's already been created. So,
and the thing to keep in mind too is that it's not just the studios that's going to Embracer Group, but a lot of the games and franchises that those studios have worked on are also part of Embracer Group.
Yes.
So who knows when we're going to be getting a new Tomb Raider in the next, however many years, if it's going to be like following the same, story as the other ones, or it's going to be its own remake. Like, how different is that going to be?
I think Tomb Raider's on the shelf for a while. That's my gut feeling, because Shadow was not super well received, and I think it was the conclusion of a trilogy. So even then, I think there's not a lot to cover going forward.
Sweet. The Tomb Raider remake.
The remake part 2. Yeah, I think the thing that most concerns me is the future of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Because I don't think those rights went with Eidos. I think Square still has them.
It would be weird if they did, because Square does a lot of Disney-related things. Like, they're kind of the like Disney video game conglomerate.
Certain that those rights are like exclusively held by Square, though.
I think that's probably the most likely situation, is that every time they're used, they need to be discussed between the license holders, aka Marvel and Disney, and the game studio. I hope the case is that Eidos had a deal for 1 to 3 games or something.
I really
maybe
hope
2.
So.
I hope they have the go ahead to make the second game, because that game was excellent.
How badass would it be if Guardians of the Galaxy 2 comes out, and with just that unfettered creative process, no one breathing down their back, or whatever the problems were for their development of the first game, and just the second one comes out and it is like a masterpiece or something? How awesome would that be?
It'd be great.
Because the first one is really, really close, but it's like it has no semblance of polish on it for the vast majority of the gameplay. It is like super just barely held together with tissue paper, but like the writing and the mechanics and all the individual aspects are so good. They just need to be super glued together a little bit more instead
I
of
never
with,
felt like
hot
it
glue.
was
Slap some
falling
duct tape
apart
on
on
it.
me.
Not falling apart, but like, sometimes like
Close
my
to
screen
falling apart.
a little
Yeah.
close. My screen would flash green and like
Oh, really? I
dialogue would
never had that.
overlap, and I don't know what was
Not
happening.
everyone was
but
super satisfied with the combat either. I think that would be the
Yeah.
biggest.
Yeah,
The
I like
veneer
the
was
combat,
starting to
but
shift.
I don't think that if there was more than another hour or two of the game, I would have been getting tired of it. Like, if there was more game, I'd be getting
Yeah.
tired of the combat. But for the
Mhm.
length it didn't bug me.
I agree.
I definitely agree with that, I think. All right, moving us on to the last few bits of news, which is definitely still going to take up the most of the rest of this podcast, I think. Lord of the Rings Gollum has been
No.
delayed.
Oh no! What
I'm
a
actually
shame!
kind of excited for that game, but I have no trust
Alex,
that
please,
they'll be any good.
please tell us why, because I think none of us
Please.
understand it.
I
Just
like Lord of the
think
Rings and I like Gollum. I don't know. That's about. It's not deep. It's not
You
deep.
know what? That works. That makes a
I
lot
like
of
That's
sense.
stealth
fine.
games.
That's fine.
I like stealth games. So like the idea of the game is interesting. Gollum's an interesting character to follow because he is
Mhm.
weirdly there for almost every important aspect of the Lord of the Rings.
But this is like
Everything going on. But
I'm just so curious.
the trailer
With
did
this
look like a PS3 game.
I want to know so badly. I think this delay is probably just to work on art. I feel like that's the big thing.
And I think where the three of us are confused is just of all the things in this entire
Of all
universe.
the Lord of the Rings projects to
Well, look,
greenlight,
I feel like there are so many awesome things that you can take from Lord of the
Just-
Rings lore and turn into
just
a
do
Am I-
Fellowship of the Ring and make a trilogy again.
Am
Just
I
do that.
saying that it's a good, like, is it the best option? No, I just was curious to see the game.
I will give it points for originality. It's completely out of left field. Whether that's a good thing or not is besides the point.
I think we'll
different.
find out. I think
All right.
we'll find out.
Alex,
I
let's
think
play a
it'll probably
game.
be bad.
Let's play a game, Alex. We like to play games on the show, and so I'm going to ask you, gun to your head, $70, do you buy this game?
Oh
No.
my god!
$60.
No, I can send you right down. $40 is where I start thinking about
40
it.
is where you start thinking? All right,
I think
$40.
that-
Are you
okay.
in on day one?
Day one, no. I'm in on day one on very little. God of War might be in on day one. That's like the only game I can think of. This
All right,
is
I'm
that
just
game
glad
is
we've figured out the target market
100% and
and what they are
wait-and-see
willing
game.
to release and pay
Yeah.
for a release.
Do you know how much they're charging for it yet? Has that been announced?
Probably full
I
price.
think it's a full price game.
Oh,
It's also like it's not. Let it be known. This is not because it's a Gollum game or because it's a stealth game or because it's a Lord of the Rings game. It's just because kind of like all those things together. It's like, what kind of you're not gonna get Metal Gear out of Gollum? Like, are you stupid? Like,
I'm 100% sure we're getting like. You ever play those Styx games?
Yeah, I think those are probably
guy.
more.
I think we're
gonna be.
aiming right there. Except those games have more combat than we'll see.
I mean, from what I've seen of Gollum, I think at least the trailer that they showed is like a solid notch underneath Styx, and I like Styx. Styx is a good series.
What if Styx came out for the PS3 and it was Lord of the Rings time?
But Styx looks more AAA than this.
Yep.
That's my confusion here.
Well,
which
the
is a
studio
shame.
that makes it is I don't know how they swung getting these rights, honestly. I guess they buttered up some Tolkien person by saying this game's going to be super lore accurate.
And I do want to back this up because like we often talk about art styles and how graphical fidelity is not important. What is important is the like art style and visual flair and whatnot of the game. I'm just so curious because like I think this trailer really showed maybe the intent of the art style is there, but the actual like execution.
Yeah, I agree with you.
off.
I had seen some like character designs and stuff before, and isolated, I think they look cool and interesting with the art style. But when I saw the trailer itself, and like the art style of the environment as a whole, it did look real weird to me.
Because
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm like having like a schizophrenia delusion right now, but like if I'm remembering it correctly, it's like almost like clay. Like people look a little cartoonized versions of like the
It's a
Lord of the Rings
weird mix
characters,
of
which
It's
is like
yeah.
you know like that works for like the PS2 Lord of the Rings games because you can't really like do much better for overworld models, but like the way they did it is like you don't really expect Lord of the Rings to be like almost like kidified like that, especially not Gollum for a game about him. What? Because it visually it looks to me I'm getting like I'm receiving like okay if someone is pitching this to me I go oh is this art style meant for like a children's version of like a Lord of the Rings product or whatever, and a game about Gollum trying to not be killed is probably not like it's not that clearly it's not that, but like visually I'm getting that from it. Like it looks like a softened version of Lord of the Rings, which like
You know what it
that's
actually
one of
most
those
reminds me of, Brett? Alice
what
Madness
a
Returns.
little bit, which still does not fit Lord of the Rings.
That's exactly, I think, where I'm getting the thing I keep saying about calling it a PS3 game, is that it looks like, I don't know, there's games from that era
That had
that
this art style.
that had an art
Yes.
style kind of like that, because it was still like in an era where, I mean, some games tried for like realistic graphical fidelity, and like Uncharted and whatnot, those games look good. But there was a lot more games that were going for sort of that middle ground between cartoon and realistic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I definitely agree with that. And I do think so the developer behind Gollum is Daedalic Entertainment. Daedalic has done a lot. They're a pretty well respected studio,
They're
but
like a
they've
double A
most
studio, though.
yeah, they're double A, and they've mostly done smaller scale things like point and clicks. They've done a few games that are a little bit more in depth, but for the majority of it, they're mostly publishers, not
Isn't,
developers.
I don't want to bring up more controversy, but isn't Nacon the publisher behind this game?
I feel like that might be correct, but I'm not sure.
Necco wafers?
Like Nacon,
What?
the publisher
No,
who
that's an
like
old candy.
stole
I
and
know what Neko
sold.
wafers are, but Nacon is a game publisher that have been publishing games for a long time.
I
Please ignore me.
believe they
They
had
are.
recently stepped in it about, I think it was like Call of Cthulhu or something. No, that's older than that one. Some Cthulhu related game. I don't remember the title. The Singing City. That's the
Thinking
one.
City,
Oh,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
yes,
That was a
right.
recent release by those publishers where, according to the developers, the publishers stole an
Hmm.
earlier release, like, and published it before the developers were ready or informed about,
Mhm.
Yep.
and so now there's like a weird thing, I think, where like for the PC release, you can buy it off the developer's website, where their website is like, this is the official version of the game. Do not purchase it on Steam. You are
Yeah, yeah.
purchasing it from the publisher who
I
illegally
think that
published it.
might have been resolved by now, but I'm not
I think
certain.
it probably was.
Because
I
I
have
feel like
not
there
played
was
the
a lot of
game.
legal issues with that led to an
No
immediate
idea.
retraction of what was going on.
I have
But
no idea. I think there was possibly a legal battle. Didn't see the outcome of that.
yeah, I think this is it's odd because Daedalic has not released I think a like full scale game since 2018. They released a few other smaller things, but I wouldn't consider these to be like high profile games. They're more like strange experimental things, and I think most of them have been well received. It's just not the type of thing I think you would consider a high profile game. The last thing they did was State
Well,
of Mind, which is a like
oh,
futuristic thriller thing that was also not super well received. So I think it's just such a fascinating situation for
I feel
Gollum
like
to be in.
Gollum is exactly the kind of game they would publish, but since it has the Lord of the Rings name on it, it has the public eye on it way more than any other game that they
Yeah,
would
but I do think
develop.
this game has AAA expectations, and it's being developed at a studio that I would not consider AAA.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I have fully like AA to indie expectations from that game.
And I think if you have
That
those
might be why
expectations, you
I'm
might have a good time
more excited.
with this.
Because I know it's not
Honestly,
going to be that good.
But it's not even that it won't be good. I think it's just people are probably going to expect too much of this game.
Yeah.
For the size of the team behind it, which is
wonder
unfortunate. But
if just calling it Gollum would have been better, because as soon as you stick the Lord of the Rings on something, you expect grand, epic scale. You expect this like huge.
yeah, it does imply a different
story.
thing.
And then,
Like,
but
what if they
it's
said
just
Middle
called
Earth?
Gollum,
Because
Yeah.
Middle Earth: Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor has a different
Nobody's
implication.
fair on
Like,
those
I don't
games.
feel as attached to Lord of the Rings overarching plot as I do if you say this is a Lord of the Rings game, right?
Clearly,
It
the
can be just like, it's a Middle Earth
developers
game.
of those games also did not feel too attached to the Lord of the Rings name and wrote some wacky fan fiction. And called it a game.
Fun games, though.
Oh, I love them. Don't get me wrong, but I can't think about the plot for more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It squarely fits in that Force Unleashed sort of niche.
All right. It's time to talk about the big one. The big one of the
Did you
week.
get the big one yet?
We haven't gotten the big one yet. The big one,
Oh, I
Brett,
think I know this one.
is that Grand Theft Auto 6 will have a female main character.
My
God,
And
I forgot.
gamers
This
have
wasn't the
had
one I
a
thought it was.
reaction to this.
I was gonna say I actually forgot that this happened because I personally could
I
not
saw that and was
give
just like, okay.
exactly like something
Yeah.
different. Is
I
it like
also,
Rockstar's
a
gone
new-
too political.
I was gonna say, is it like a new like political liberal revolution that we should all be celebrating as it's forwarding the philosophy of it? No, it's a game character that has a model that looks different than a guy. But then on the other end, it's like, should we be burning down the Rockstar HQ for that? No, it's a game character with a different model than a guy. I like who it really doesn't.
It's also-
it's cool, I guess. I don't care.
in my mind, it's so like I can't. You could tell me anything about Grand Theft Auto 6, and at this point, I wouldn't believe it. Like, there's been so much. There's like so many. You could like throw me a trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6, and I'd be like, wow, this is some pretty good Photoshop. Like, there's been so many rumors and so many fake videos and everything that I just like see something about Grand Theft Auto 6 and I ignore it.
I remember there's that big boom of like, oh, here's what Grand Theft Auto 6 is gonna look like. I have secret leaked footage, and they just like mod the crap out of GTA 5.
Yeah. Which is fun in its own right, but it's not GTA 6.
No.
There is some other information about GTA 6 on this, though, that I do want to talk about. It's from another Bloomberg article. Morals at Rockstar are supposedly sky high right now. Morale, not morals. Morale is sky high.
I got what you meant.
Yeah. People are having a good time working there. The culture has supposedly been very cleaned up and a lot more pleasant to be around. And the team is apparently very excited about Grand Theft Auto 6. It's also going very slowly in development and is going to be a while before it comes out. They've said the game is likely 2 years away, happening in the 2024 fiscal year, which means earliest we see this game will be April 2023 to March 2024. Delay? Likely.
I think that's too soon.
Delay almost confirmed. You might as well just say it.
Well, I think the thing with this game has likely already been internally delayed a few times. Seems to be the expectation. And like not in that they were hitting close to the line, but they were probably like, okay, we'll plan this game for like 2022. And someone was like, maybe push it back a year.
Which, like, hence why, we haven't gotten super specific information about it for such a long time, other than them saying, okay, yeah, no, we're confirming making it, because, like that kind of internal delay over and over again is, like, fine for a game, because you're going through the creative process, and at that point, no one outside knows about it yet. Your investors aren't, like, constantly hounding you, like, is this hitting, like, this point of development yet? Or is it, like, no, we're just kind of making the game. Like, you got to plan the game to be that big. For it to be that big, it takes a long time.
Because the expectations are that the game's going to be huge. So
yeah. And Rockstar is one of those studios where they can really get away with like taking a super long time on a game. I mean, the stretch between like Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead 2, for example, because they also have Grand Theft Auto Online, which is probably, if they never make another video game again, Grand Theft Auto Online is going to make sure there's change in their pockets for the rest of their life. So like,
Yeah.
They can clearly take the time to work on this and make sure it's up to the usual Rockstar standard, and I am all for that. Take as much time as you need.
Better than crunching.
Better
Absolutely.
than crunching. Better than crunching.
Yeah.
If there's anything good to come out of Grand Theft Auto Online, it's that it gives them the time to make games properly without putting health at risk.
I do just hope. I think the big hope, at least I and a lot of the old school GTA fans, quote unquote, is that they hope this game will still be primarily single player, and maybe just give us some single player DLC or something, maybe just a little bit, or at least let us use the multiplayer things in the single player. All the systems are in place. I understand you want to sell shark cards, but I would love to do a single player version of Heist, because the GTA Online community is largely trashed, especially on PC, where a solid 50% of them are hacking the game constantly and will get you banned for going online.
Dude, do you know how much? Like, one time I'm changing my clothes in a store, and suddenly somebody's dropping like millions of dollars on my head, and I'm like, I literally can't even get out of this menu fast enough to be like, stop hacking into my account because I want to play the game.
Yeah. It's like people think they're being nice, but I'm like, I want to play the game. If you give me all the progression at the start,
money. But
that is in stark contrast to Red Dead Online, where just no one's playing it, so there is no toxic community.
Well, people are playing it. Nobody's updating it.
I love Red Dead Online. I wish it would get some updates. A heist, anything.
Though I will say, Red Dead Online is in a pretty good state. Like it's not. It doesn't need as many huge changes. It's dead, but it was for the like 2 to 3 years it's had a good time. So
it was, yeah. I think it was more consistently fun.
Yeah, and it's also, I think Red Dead Online is pretty easily played solo too, compared to GTA Online, because people aren't as. It seems like it has a much smaller audience for people to just jump in and completely break the game.
Well, also it's like the online mode still has a lot of those like sim elements, so it's harder to like grief people. So.
Yep. All right.
There's only so fast you can go on a horse.
More to talk about with GTA 6. The premise of the story that we've been told is that there is a pair of protagonists. One is the playable woman who is a Latina woman, as well as someone else. We don't know the other character yet, who will be a Bonnie and Clyde style pairing that is, or at least inspired by Bonnie and Clyde.
Sounds fun to me.
It's set in Miami.
That's pretty cool.
Set in Miami to start, which is a cool setting. I think that's very Vice City inspired, so looking forward to that.
Is it Miami or is it Vice City? Aren't they?
Miami is inspired, or Vice City is inspired by Miami. This is another take on Miami.
Okay.
So
Vice City 2.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because GTA doesn't use real world locations. They use their fake version of real world locations. So Miami is the fake version of the real world location, or Miami is the real world location that the fake version will be based on. But there's some big confusion with this, and maybe not confusion, but interesting things going on. Originally, this game was apparently planned to include large portions of North and South America.
Okay.
Okay.
That's too much.
This is a statement that confuses me on a lot of levels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so curious at what point, because apparently the original title, the original code name of this project was Project Americas, and it was going to be bigger than any Grand Theft Auto game. It was going to be including territories modeled after large swaths of North and South America. This was likely never in development. That's the thing. This was likely never made it past paper development. But it is hilarious to me that this was a plan.
Four times the size of Fallout 4.
They did that one like South American island in like GTA Online, and so maybe they wanted to like play around with that sort of aesthetic and idea.
They're not.
And they've done that with Red Dead before, because I mean there's the portion of Mexico in Red Dead Redemption. There's Guarma in Red Dead Redemption 2 that no one likes to talk about.
Yeah, I
Um,
think Red Dead 1 did it right in that you had a really good feeling of being in that separate area, but it spatially was not that big. Like it was a small section with like one big town and a few outposty type things to interact with, some
it was
side
more
stuff
for
to
the
do.
story than for
But it
the
was
little
much more of an
plot
important story
section.
beat. So I think that worked really well. They're not scrapping this idea completely though. Apparently, the new map is a fictional version of Miami and surrounding areas. The plan that Rockstar currently has is to continually add new missions and cities on a regular basis.
Oh, jeez.
I think I had heard that one before, or somebody had. There had been a rumor that was similar to that before, and
I mean, I honestly think
I don't hate.
of games that could become like a proper single and multiplayer live service, GTA is a pretty good pick. Like, I think
Yeah.
it would make the transition really well. Because if you can do self-contained like crime stories in all these different cities, you might end up with something that really feels like a crime TV show. And
I
like
think
The
that
Wire is still one of the best TV shows that I've ever seen. It was very
if
good, and
yeah,
I'm down for that in video game form.
if they like so like in GTA Online, nobody cares about the stories in GTA Online very much. So if they transition their efforts to let's make some heist on an island, take the island heist in GTA Online as example. If instead of putting quite as much effort into the story in the online version, they just put the gameplay in the online version and make a single player version of the story where you can do the same activity.
Yeah, I
That,
think that would work really well.
My
Um,
biggest question mark, I don't know if this comments on this at all, but my big question mark with GTA 6 is always going to be, are they going to bring a lot of the sim elements from Red Dead 2 into Grand Theft Auto, or are they going to keep those things separate? It's like Grand Theft
I
Auto is going
hope
to be
so.
much more gamey. This is going to be much more like cowboy sim than like
I have a
video
feeling they'll
game.
probably bring over the like interactivity elements, like walking into a store and looking around. I think that could make it over. I don't think a lot of the more repetition elements and things like skinning an animal and doing things like that and like the lengthy fishing mini games, stuff like that. I don't think that will come over
Because
because
I feel
that's
like,
really important to nailing like a cowboy experience. It's modern day. People know how to do all this stuff, right?
but also GTA is like, I'm gonna go into this, like, this isn't how everyone plays GTA, but like the classic, like, I'm gonna go into the city and just mass,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
havoc, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's a
Those
lot
fly to
harder
the air
to
days.
do.
Yeah.
That's a lot harder to do when you have those like more realistic like
Well, I wouldn't be
sim
surprised if we
elements.
saw sim elements. Like I like the sim elements in Red Dead, but if you're right, they don't fit as well in GTA. But excuse me. But San Andreas did that already. Basically, you like eat and work out, and those things affect your stats and whatnot. And so
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a return of some of those elements.
I could see
And more
those elements
than
coming back in a more gamey way. Like I don't think they're
yeah,
gonna
Yeah.
attempt to make it mimic physical movements the way that Red Dead does. I have a feeling it'll be more like press X to do this, like a quick time event style things would be
mhm.
my assumption.
That's the way it was in San Andreas. So.
Yeah, that's
I also think
what I
just as
think.
a way to keep the identity of these two games separate and not have them be like too crossed over with each other, I think one needs to be in one lane and one needs to be in the other.
Mhm.
And I think because that
Yeah,
just
yeah.
creates two different franchises that don't feel too similar, because then you have the Ubisoft problem where everything starts to
Everything's the same. Yeah.
blur and mush together. Whereas, if you keep those elements separate, I feel like you have two franchises that are going to appeal to different people, and that's just better
Hmm.
for
Mhm.
you.
All right, anything else on that, Alex? I know we partially cut you off there.
Oh, I don't even know what I was gonna say. I think that was it.
Yeah, probably more talking about the mini games. I think was gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't need
Yeah,
to go into the mini games. Oh,
I'm
I do remember what I was gonna say. I was just gonna say, without being like a sim thing, I hope that they have the same like level of interactivity.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's really what the sim elements were in
Hmm.
Red Dead, to me at least. And there's times in GTA where I feel like there's large swaths of the map that are much more. You're gonna drive or fly over this section, and that's the entire purpose.
Yeah, I would really
Uh,
like there to be more stuff like interior things and
yeah.
things like that are a little bit more crazy. Like I'd love give me like an abandoned mall
Just thinking that.
with like a gang inside of it that you have to contend with for something. I'd love that. That'd be a fun mission.
All right,
Um,
Yakuza player, get out of here.
I'm actually thinking of Cyberpunk. That idea is
Oh,
coming from
God.
Cyberpunk because Cyberpunk had a section like that was I think pretty fun.
Mhm.
And I'd like to see GTA's take on that because I think it would fit really well. But yeah, you can substitute that for any number of things. Like, I think just having more levels that go in and out of buildings would be really fun and get a little bit more varied gameplay in there. All right, that's the news. That's most of it. We probably missed something. If we did, we'll talk about it next week, or it's not important. At least
There was
for
another
us to add our
controversy I can think
opinions.
of, but it hasn't really. I don't think it's come full circle for like a news bit.
Yeah. This is always what happens. What we end up doing is we'll have like a string of episodes that are very focused, and then in between that week and the next one, there are just gonna be so many things that pop up that all of a sudden we have to now talk about like 8 things. And actually, I just realized we didn't talk about Roblox getting rid of this sound.
So sad. So sad.
Ryan, don't make me
It's
cry
so
on
much.
stream.
End of an era.
It's due to licensing issues. So apparently the sound is likely from just like a sound library, and they probably lapsed their license to get it. So like I think they've said you can now like get it in the store and set it to be your new sound to replace whatever the new one is, but it's just a licensing thing. Yeah, that's
Dystopian.
pretty much
It's
it.
just for them to get you to buy more Robux.
They probably didn't think Roblox was going to last more than 10 years or something, and were surprised
Boy,
that
were
it's taken
they
off
wrong.
as much. Very wrong.
Very wrong.
Yeah.
Sadly.
All right. It's time to talk about what we've been playing this week. In the past couple of weeks, because we don't often do this. But yeah, I'm going to open the floor up. Who's got something they want to talk about? Things that they've enjoyed
Well.
or not enjoyed.
Well, like I said, I've been really busy the past couple of weeks. So I haven't been able to sit down and like sink my teeth into a nice narrative heavy, single
Mhm.
player thing. So what I've been doing to supplement the time is I've been bouncing back and forth between different like arena shooters. And the big one that I wanted to talk about, that I know at least 2 others here can chime in on, is I've been getting back into Splitgate recently. And Splitgate is rad, and I love it.
Very fun.
I feel like we've talked about it a couple times on the show before. Although it's probably been
Not
a
at
little
late
It's
while.
been like
though.
maybe twice, and it's been like a full year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They were
for
very
those of
small
you
little snippets.
who don't know, first of all, shame on you. Shame on
It's
you.
free to start off.
Right. It's free. Second of all, it is think of the most bog standard arena shooter you could think of made in Unreal, but there's one little twist. Everyone has a portal gun.
Mm-hmm.
Which changes the everything.
A little bit.
And you have all of the standard modes you could think of, like capture the flag, oddball, king of the hill, but all of these modes are now completely different because you just got these portals going everywhere. Um, and it's great because not only can you walk through them, but you can also shoot through them too. You can only see through your own portal, so you can set up like what it does to sightlines for multiplayer maps is it completely throws that concept out the window, and then it falls on its head, and it's just this complete it's insanity. But it's not this unorganized chaotic mess as you would think it is. It's not like you can just throw up a portal anywhere. Much like Portal, there's like specific walls that you can shoot your portals on, and they do a
And
really
the
good
level
job
design is generally really good.
yeah, they
at
do a really
controlling
good
where it
job of
is.
incorporating of making sure that those spaces are actually a part of the level design, but also it does a great job of making sure it doesn't get too chaotic. It only puts it in the most important spots where you can make some really cool plays, but it doesn't overwhelm the player too much. It's
Mhm.
really, really well balanced in that regard. And just
Yeah.
on top of that twist, it's got just really good like shooter fundamentals, like all the weapons feel great. There isn't a weapon that comes to mind that I don't like using. and they all feel really good. They all look, generic as hell, but that's fine. That's not really a problem.
They're recognizable too, which is good.
Yes, they got the shape language.
Yeah, and we did a live stream a couple days ago where the three of us played it, and there was
VOD's
some
up on
pretty
YouTube, yeah.
there was some pretty clutch stuff that happened,
And it's on camera as well, which is incredible. That has never happened before.
Because we were talking about this while we were playing, but like that game's sandbox is such that you don't really have to be like a god gamer to pull off a really, really sick play. Like sometimes things just like they just line up, and it's so often that you just constantly feel like amazing playing it. Like whether it's like Ryan just barely being able to stop someone running away like the millisecond before they put their pinky toe into a portal to escape,
a
or it's just
railgun,
like
no
with a
less.
railgun, or it's just like, oh man, I really am on like a 27 kill streak right now.
This
and
is
I
like the
just
one time
realized
I can
because the
swap us
number
to the
came up.
video layout and actually show Splitgate gameplay footage while we're talking about it.
Oh my
Nice,
god!
Because I have
threw
it
up-
ready to go.
Technology.
While we were playing, I had shot a portal behind someone that was shooting me, and he was backing up in this hallway. And then he backed up, and my other portal was right next to me, and he didn't know that my portal was behind him, and so he backed right up to me, perfect for a back smack. It was like, what?
Massive brain, gigantic
Mhm.
brain.
Wasn't
You're
planning on
selling
that
me
at
on this
all,
game. I haven't
but it
played it
just
yet.
happened.
It's
Oh,
free,
yeah,
and
play
it's
it
a
with it.
super
It's free.
small download.
Alright.
Yeah.
I'm on my computer right now. I'm in
Do it.
Steam right now.
Highly
Do it.
recommended.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's a lot.
super fun.
And it's like Brett was saying, it's a lot like Titanfall, where sometimes, like, even
Yeah.
if you're not the best player, it just makes you feel like such a badass because
Yep.
you pulled off this.
Because
like-
it's really a game that encourages moments in a way that very few. I think this is like why Overwatch originally got super popular. Is because the play of the game stuff and all that was really good at showcasing when you had a cool moment, and because of the design of characters, it was generally easy to have a cool moment, even if you weren't super good, because there were characters that had auto aim. There's stuff that like you don't need to be a Twitch shooter pro
You
to
just line
play
up
well.
a McCree shot. Alright, no longer the
Yeah,
man
not McCree
formerly
anymore.
known as McCree.
Not yet.
I
Formerly
don't
known as-
remember his new name.
Yeah, I haven't
Cowboy
played
Man.
Overwatch recently, so I probably should know that, but I don't.
It's okay. It's
I was
not.
gonna
It's
say.
not your project.
not my team. Yeah, I think that's what really makes Splitgate feel super fun. Is even if you're bad at shooters, you can figure out a way to make a cool thing happen. And like, yeah, you're gonna die a lot because other people are also doing cool things to you.
Oh yeah,
But
totally.
it doesn't feel nearly as bad because the
Yeah.
time to kill is really good. Like, it feels super tuned, which is
Yes.
really hard to find in
They're
a lot
also
of FPSs.
they're also not afraid to get real wacky with some of the game modes. Some of them are like proper, just weird, unhinged.
Yeah.
Super action sack level stuff.
Like
Oh,
level
yeah.
voting, it's just like super quick to get into, very fast, and you can reliably like make a playlist of game modes. A thing that
Yeah.
is like, it should be in basically every FPS that's an online game and has a big enough population to support it, right? I
What-
think that
you
just goes a
fe-
really
you
long way.
Sighed like you were about to make a comparison. That seems a bit
Well,
odd.
you know, when I play Halo Master Chief Collection, I love being able to set my playlist and like play cool things, and then you know, occasionally I play this old Halo game that came out a long time ago called Halo Infinite. It just, I wish it was there in that game, but I get it because it was developed before, you know, and
No.
oh,
They should bring it up to the new standard as of like 5 years ago. New standard.
I haven't played Halo Infinite in a while, basically since it launched, and I'm surprised to hear you say that because I assumed they would have patched that in since then.
No, I don't
even
know.
It's even-
To I know you don't need filling in because it's all on your programming, but to fill in any people who would be tuning in for the first time, without going into it, just the like post-launch dev cycle for 343 on Halo Infinite has basically been like I don't know,
just slow.
like
I think is the right way to
molasses.
describe it. Which is like, this is the time you don't blame anyone on the dev team for this, because I think it's
Yeah.
just poor planning in their engine is likely not good at handling live service,
Well,
which
and
is just
also,
the biggest shame.
apparently the team that's working on post-launch support right now is very different than the team that was like in active development.
It's all contracted people, and
Yeah.
their contracts run
mean-
out. If you're on a project like Halo Infinite supposedly was, I would not think that you would sign on for another amount after that.
I mean, I guess it's not worth pointing out that the other arena shooter game that I've been playing other than Splitgate is Halo Infinite. I'm just, you know what?
Well, that's the
That's
thing,
falling on
Wyatt, is
deaf
that I
ears.
think all of us agree that Halo Infinite is very fun to play.
Oh, it's fun.
The base
just
gameplay
has-
is fun, yeah.
It just, I need maps. I need
Mhm.
mode selection, and I want to play
hey.
Infection.
I've said this 1,000 times. My complaints about Halo Infinite are your complaints.
Yeah, no,
I
we're
still have
agreeing.
put,
is
like,
what I'm telling you.
God knows. Hold on, what's my hour count?
See, I'll never bemoan someone for liking Halo Infinite because we also liked it. Like, it's a good game. It just suffers from they should not have said it was a live service.
Yeah, like
And
I
it-
enjoyed it. I just did not enjoy it enough to keep playing it in its current state, and it will take a lot to
Yeah,
like.
especially over Master Chief Collection, which is one of the best multiplayer FPSs I've ever played. Like,
By the same
it's like I'm missing the
blanket
grappling
name.
hook, which I do
I-
miss the grappling hook, but
I
you didn't
think
have it all
there's
the
a
time
lot-
anyway. So
I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of the sandbox that I miss when I go play MCC personally.
well, I think the difference is like I don't tend to play multiplayer shooters for sandbox elements. That's not usually what I find fun. Like I like Halo Infinite having them. I don't think it's a bad thing at all, and I think it makes that game feel very unique and fun. But I don't miss it when I go play a different game because it's not like a thing that I look for in
I guess
multiplayer FPSs.
my big thing, I think I've mentioned this before, but my big thing is I feel like every so for context, I have 17 days, 11 hours and 10 minutes in, right? And through that entire time, I say that because throughout my entire time, I'm still every now and then finding cool new ways to manipulate the tools in the sandbox, right? Like, especially with things like the repulsor, like there's so many cool things that don't happen that often, but when they do, you feel like it feels great, and I feel like I'm still experimenting with all these things and just trying like the wackiest, weirdest stuff, And I feel like that's where a lot of my time is with that game now. Is like, what if I like? It's like going in and doing like a lab experiment. You go into a multiplayer game. It's like, all right, if I do this, there's the grappling hook on this, and then I try the repulsor on this, and you're seeing what you can get away with, and it's so fascinating because I feel like I'm still discovering new things about the sandbox every day that I play or something.
I guess for me, I'd put it that in most FPSs with really good level design, the map flow and level design tends to make up for that for me. Because I'll have that same thought process, but it'll be, okay, well, what if I approach from this side and like go around this corner and then take this route to go get behind them or something? Like, I think that it's a very similar thought process. Yeah, it's just an interesting thing. All right, I'm going to bring up a game that I brought up last week. I had been playing As Dusk Falls. And I will stand by everything I said last week. I think that game is very good. I think it's one of the better narrative choose-your-own-adventure games. I just wish it had not released as buggy as it is.
Art style.
See, that's the art style I keep going back and forth on. I wish that they had chosen something different because I personally don't really like it. But I get why they went with this because the thing that became abundantly clear after that initial portion I played and talked about, and is now like super clear after I finished the game, facial expressions are hugely important in As Dusk Falls to kind of gauge what a character's thinking. And that art style gets the facial expression across really well. There's a caveat here to like, I've played a fair number of visual novels, both of like weird indie things and like proper Japanese style visual novels. I think all of them have had more appealing art styles to me. So But conversely, I don't think any of them have had as detailed facial expressions and been as well thought out. They also weren't generally 70 gigabytes.
Yeah.
And actually,
That game was 70 gigs?
113 after I downloaded the high resolution files.
Oh,
God.
oh that's like Warzone or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I beat the game. I finished as Dusk Falls. Not as long as people have made it out to be online. At least not if you get it right in one playthrough. And by get it right, I mean survive to the end. And there are multiple endings. There's like lots of different ways to get there. Took me, I think, about a total of 7 to 8 hours. Really weird ending. And this is the thing where I want to know what happened. Because the game ends, like, all the plot lines that you deal with are mostly concluded. It's pretty satisfying. And then you, like, flash forward to the modern day part of the story, which is, like, taking place far after the rest of the events that happened. You get to see, like, how they affected the child in this, like, robbery that went on and how she's grown up and everything. You're playing as her, and then the game just kind of stops at a critical thing happening. It's like a proper cliffhanger where something happens in her modern day life. You're like, oh, now we need to go back and figure out this mystery. And then the game's over.
Oh, and there's no like other ending.
There's no other ending. There's nothing else. This is at the end of book 2 of the game. There are 2 books, which are like 3 chapters each.
Sequel?
And
I guess.
I don't. And I looked it up because I was super confused. I was like, wait, did I miss something? Is there something else I need to do to like figure out what's going on here? And online people are just like, yeah, this is just how the game is.
Call the sequel after Dusk Falls.
Yeah, I feel like that's what the intent was, but I can't find anything online of them confirming a sequel or DLC or anything. So I want to know, did it get canceled? And this is what
the old Metal Gear Solid 5.
And we're left with this horrific cliffhanger, because you can kind of work out what happened. You can work out who, like, the people involved in this were. But I don't know why. There's no logic here that can work to me.
Weird.
To describe what has happened in a way that doesn't need explanation. Like, and the funny thing is, it's not like a mystery that isn't introduced. This is a mystery that is one of the first mysteries you find at the old area. Is like the grandfather has some weird connection with some of the crook people, essentially, and is trying to hide from them and like not show his face. And it just ends up feeling a little odd because they never fully address it in the game. And the thing that happens in modern day relies upon that never fully addressed information, which then never gets addressed. So it's just super confusing ending. I still think the game's totally worth playing because it has a really good set of protagonists. It feels really interesting. It's very tense, and I think works really well until it ends and you're left going, huh? So honestly, just end it when the game, just stop when the game feels like it ended, because you'll hit a moment playing this game where you'll be like, that was the ending. Like, I just had the heart-to-heart with someone that I didn't like, and now we can hash out our problems or whatever. Game's over.
Man, it feels like you're talking about Last of Us 2 right now. I'm getting some weird flashbacks.
It does! Like...
That's so weird.
Which is, again, this is why I come back to the whole idea of, like, auteurs and people that get really caught up in their ideas of how, oh, this cool, expansive story can be told.
They get caught up in their art.
They get caught up in their art, and it becomes an issue when you don't deliver on it. And you have this weird ending that doesn't feel satisfying. And honestly, all they need to do to fix this is just confirm whether or not stuff is coming. Tell me whether there is more game that is going to happen, or just wrap this up. Like, wrap it up in a little bow and then throw it in a corner on Twitter, and I'll be happy. But as of now, I think it's just really confusing that there's no proper ending here. Yeah,
That's weird.
Super strange.
Well, you ran
Wild
out.
thing.
Dusk fell, and so there was no more time to tell the story because it's only as dusk falls.
Also, we'll add banging soundtrack. They
Oh,
do the
really?
thing where they'll use, like, It's a thing that last or not Last of Us. Wow. Why am I forgetting the name of Life is Strange? Life is Strange is what I'm looking for. Life is Strange does the music stuff where it has like songs tied into important moments and things, and generally has a good selection. This does the same thing, except it's like I think it's music written for this game for the most part. There's like one or two more regular things, but a lot of it is just like really good film style score music that sounds great. Yeah. Good game, worth playing if you can scrounge the 70 gigabytes, or just play it on Xbox Cloud because it doesn't require fast inputs generally. And if it does, you can just enable the thing that gives you more time to input them. So it's not really a big problem. Super weird though. I don't understand the choices that were made. All right. Who else has been playing something they want to talk about?
I've been playing video games.
You've been playing video
Wouldn't
games?
you know it? Wouldn't you know it? My characters remained consistent this whole time. I'm doing the best job out of any review. I played a weird PS2 game again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say its name in full so that Wyatt's brain can promptly explode and not be able to handle a title that is more than 3 words long.
Okay, let me get some room so the explosion has maximum effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay. Shin Megami Tensei, Devil Summoner, Raito Kuzunoha versus the Soulless Army.
I love
There
it.
you go. This is a Shin Megami Tensei game, obviously, because that was the first of the words in the novel.
I recognize the
title.
first part
Yes.
in that entire text document.
I played it because Devil Summoner is the same like subtitle or whatever that Soul Hackers is in, and Soul Hackers 2 is coming out soon. I want to play that, so I was like, I don't know, maybe there'll be some connections or whatever, because there always is in these wacky JRPGs.
It's
And
wacky to
also,
backy JRPGs.
yeah, and also Raito himself, the caped detective katana wielding man, has appeared in a couple other SMT games, so I mean he might show up as well. And now I definitely have an appreciation for how cool he is, because I did finish the game, and I will preface this by saying it was actually really, really, really friggin' sick. And I would recommend that if you ever for some reason just feel the need to play a action RPG that is on the same console
Hey people,
as Kingdom Hearts 2.
you got a Steam Deck?
Yeah.
This is perfect for it.
Although I do think Atlas did a poll recently of what games people wanted to see get ported or like remastered, and Raito was pretty high up. I think Raito was like 4th place or something, like immediately after Persona 3 and 4, which is pretty crazy. Because like actual real copies of these games goes for like $300.
Actually, I
Which is
think Persona 4 was pretty low on that list, to be honest. I remember it
relatively.
being like, although I think the reasoning most people have was like it doesn't feel that old.
And the
So,
Steam port is like fine. Like it's just a good
yeah, it
port
doesn't
for
need
the
like a
game
full
or
remake
whatever.
because that game is really, really good on its own.
But yeah, I mean, it's simple, super like gameplay wise, simple action RPG where you just got your 3-hit combos, and you got like 2 different charge moves, and you have an AI controlled demon partner that you can summon from your whole list of weird creatures that you've caught and taught moves and such.
This is starting to
It's
sound more and more like Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah.
it's a little bit, I guess. It's interesting because it takes place in like 1931 or something in Japan, and it does kind of almost a little bit a baby version of the Kojima thing, where it mushes real life history and vibes into things that are absolutely not realistic whatsoever. But it does it in such a way where everything is heightened and everything is like, okay,
Selling you.
you've interwoven so many aspects of industrial movement forward and development in Japanese history that maybe a rocket going up to space isn't really the wackiest thing anymore, and it just kind of feels right that that's there. That my spirit cat would ride that into space to blow up a satellite. That just kind of feels right. Um, but this especially, because I've just kind of picked and chosen a little bit of the weirder,
Mhm.
I guess aside from Persona 3, the weirder PS2 titles that Atlas has done, and I kind of want to say that they were a little bit of like the sleeper company on that console. Like they just totally
Yeah.
like completely owned it in terms of just like RPG things. They kind of have like every single
They were
thing
kind of always
filled.
that until Persona 4 Golden on the Vita like hit it big in the
Hmm.
US.
Yeah, which makes sense. But like they do the thing that FromSoft does where it's like, okay, well, we have like zombie animation set number 5 from Demon Souls. I'm not gonna like waste 8 hours to animate another zombie animation set number 5. Just use the same one. No one's gonna care, and then lo and behold,
People are even going to notice, to be honest.
exactly, yeah. Lo and behold, the people that play the game that do notice, 9 times out of 10 are going to be like, "Ah, I remember
Cool.
that." And the other like 1 time out of 10 are going to be people that are immediately shunned from the community and silenced because they're annoying and wrong and stupid, and nobody cares about their
They're just
opinion.
going to go to their the little corner on Reddit and
Uh,
complain.
The troll hole.
Exactly. Because
You
we've
know.
we've talked about this before. Reuse assets, I like most of the time, games do them all the time and nobody even notices, let alone cares.
Yeah.
But Atlas on the PS2, like every single like demon profile picture is like from the same concept art that they used for the SNES games, and they still look fine because it's the same picture, just like up-resed or like changed into a 3D model that looks perfectly fine for the era that it's in.
Mhm.
And they
After Shin
still do
Megami
that.
Tensei 5, they can just keep using those demons for the next like 8-10 years and have no
Oh
issue
yeah,
because they look so good.
for sure. Yeah. I think I
When you
interrupted
do
you
it,
saying something though, Alex. I don't want to.
oh, I was just gonna say when you were talking about reusing assets. I mean, uh, Majora's Mask is a fantastic Legend of Zelda game, and most of that game is literally just assets
Yep.
from
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. Just straight up asset flip, and
Yeah,
one of the
that
most
game
like.
basically is an asset flip, and it let them do a really weird and good game though.
Yeah.
There were whole signs in Majora's Mask that say one thing where the context of that makes no sense in Majora's Mask because it was just ripped straight from
Every
Ocarina of Time.
every
Mhm.
single NPC is the same, but just a different name.
Yep.
Mhm. All right, Alex, any games you've been playing that you want to talk about?
Sure. Wait, I've been playing a lot of a little bit of games. Over the
Yeah,
past 24
makes sense.
hours, the Steam something was on sale on Steam and it got me. Over the past 24 hours, I've been playing Hunt Showdown, but
Ooh.
I can't put
Mhm.
in like a full review yet, but I've been enjoying it. It's fun.
Mhm.
It's right where I like sort of a mix between an arcadey, shootery feel and hardcore sort of FPS. It's not Tarkov. I don't need to worry about like extremely specific ammo types and like the physics of every gun and bullet.
There's
But it's
enough to
still
learn that it's a fun process, but not too much that it's overwhelming.
exactly. It's right where I like it.
Have you been playing with friends or with
I'm
randos?
playing with a friend
Okay.
because I don't trust randos and I rarely ever play with them.
Especially in that game, you don't want
Good.
to, yeah.
It's not even like a trusted like I don't think they're gonna do a good job. It's just like a trusted like they're gonna bully me off the game. I'm too new.
Well, also, there's so much communication involved too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm constantly talking to my friend, and I was trying to play solo a little bit, and that usually just results in me getting headshot from a mile away or something. Um, but that's what I've been playing the past 24 hours. Earlier on in the week, I was playing some Sniper Elite 5. I've been enjoying that.
Mm.
It's pretty
I'll try that
new.
out.
It's exactly the same as Sniper Elite 4, but a little bit better. Um, exactly what
Often
I
where you
wanted.
want a sequel to be. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now people can invade your games like it's Dark Souls and
Oh my
try to.
god, really?
Rad. I
That's
didn't know that, and I
insane.
want to play
Oh
it
yeah,
more now.
it's yeah. And if you like, if you're playing the campaign and you're connected to internet, and when you like went into the mission, you had the little box check that said allow Axis Invasion or something. Another player can go in their game and go, I want to play Axis Invasion mode. And then they just get plunked down as like a German sniper and try to find
That's
you.
rad.
It's
That's
fun.
so
It's
cool.
fun.
You
I've
could have
played
like a
both
sniper
sides of it.
duel.
I've
It's
played
a-
both sides of it. It's a ton of fun.
It's such a cool feature that I always turn off in every game that I play.
I could absolutely see why. Yeah,
But it
I've
is a cool feature that I will never,
Dude, I had
ever
so much
use.
fun with that in Deathloop on both sides of it. Because it was a feature that if you knew how to play the game and got a good gun drop, was just guaranteed money. Like guaranteed progression whenever it happened. It was great.
I guess the one other thing I could mention that's cool and interesting is I played a little bit of the World of Warcraft Dragonflight alpha. Honestly, ignored every quest. Just hopped on that dragon mount, went to the new area, and went, yeah, this flying feels cool.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I just messed around, and I was like, there's probably more to this alpha, but I'm gonna play it when it comes out. I don't need to do every quest right now. I'm just gonna do a couple. Try the new class. The new class is weird. Maybe I'll get used to it if I play it when it comes out. Not gonna get used to it in the alpha because I'm not gonna play it enough.
I still need to
Weird
try
in
the
a
new
good way
class,
or a
yeah.
bad way? Or maybe
Jury's
both.
out. Jury's out.
Okay.
I feel like weird in a good way, but I'm so not used to playing it, and like in the alpha you start off at like basically not max level, but like you start off high level.
You don't get
That
the
class-
leveling curve that you would get to get easily looped into the class.
Yeah, that class might start out at a higher level or not. I don't know yet. I haven't been paying that close attention. But it's a funky class because it's like a magic caster class, but it's also heavily movement based, which is the exact opposite of every other like magic using class in World of Warcraft. Most of it, like the wizards are like stand still and take an hour to cast a spell, but then it does a bunch of damage. Where the Drekthir evokers, like there's a bunch of their spells that like send them flying across an area of effect, or like some of their healing spells like yanks you back to a teammate. It's kind of wild. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I like seeing them do different things. Like I said, I didn't play a ton of it simply because but I guess really just because it's the alpha, and I know that it's my progress
is
isn't
gonna
tied to
not
it.
carry over.
So
yeah.
I just wanted to play enough to get a
Makes
little
sense.
taste. I went, wow, this zone looks interesting. Cool, dragon flying is cool. I mean, it's been done in other games, but it's in World of Warcraft now, and it's cool. And
So I think very few games with dragon flying have the sheer amount of land mass
yeah,
to dragon
well,
fly in.
this is the thing too, though. But like, I think that dragon flying is not going to replace regular flying at this time, which is weird to me. But I guess it's because then some areas are going to be inaccessible and stuff because they weren't designed with it in mind. So I'm curious to see how they'll balance that out, because people are probably going to want a dragonfly because it just feels cooler. And so we'll see. Maybe you can toggle it, maybe not. No idea.
I'm curious to
Other
see
than that,
how that plays at full launch, because
we'll see how.
I booted the alpha up once and didn't even make a character.
Damn.
Very valid. There's something about World of Warcraft. We'll see how it launches as well, because Shadowlands is the best-selling PC game of all time, and then people a few months later decided that it was real bad and hated it. But that's how most World of Warcraft expansions go. Watch, in another 2 years or 3 years, people are going to be like, wow, that expansion was really good or something. It's one of those things that people are going to like it, people are going to hate it. Then it'll level out and come back around in a few years. I liked it enough. The plot was weird. I'm not going to say that the writing towards the end of the expansion was good. But I thought a lot of the gameplay was fun.
So, I did one other thing. I played a little game called Destiny 2. And
I'm gonna take about a 15-minute break. I'll be right back.
How do I lead
I,
in the stream?
Wyatt, you're gonna want to be here for this one.
Yep, too bad. You were too slow to
You're
say
gonna
that.
want to be in place
I'm
for
sure.
this.
Alright, fine.
Because I did a Divinity run.
I don't even
Now-
know what that. What?
I did not
Yeah, me
expect
neither,
you to know
man.
what this is. So, I've not raided in Destiny 2 since Leviathan, and even then, I maybe did half of Leviathan one time.
So
Like-
so you basically did the worst raid.
The worst raid, just a
Cool.
tiny bit, and was like, all right, this is not fun to me without a group of people. Now I have a group of people who is like friends outside of Destiny 2 that we play like Final Fantasy together, and I was like hanging around, and then one of their people, actually Alex that is regularly on this podcast, had some conflicts and couldn't
This
make
Alex, that's with us right now.
yeah.
Yes, that definitely wasn't a confused look on my face when you said that.
Couldn't
it was
make-
simply a look of recognition.
couldn't make the raid, and was like, yeah, I got some family stuff, so I'm like, all right, I'm free, I'm above the light level, I could do it. And then they were like, yeah, sure, we'll pull you in to learn how to raid on a Garden of Salvation Divinity run, which normally in Destiny 2, when you're doing a raid, you have checkpoints. You get to a place and you'll checkpoint. You can leave the raid, go do other things. You can go pick up the game and play it another day, and you'll save your progress to that point. Really nice, because it means you can like pick up and play, and you don't need to have like one raid night where you're going to do the whole thing.
Mhm.
A Divinity run, there is an exotic, really, really good exotic, that you have to do a big quest for, and the last step of the quest is you have to go through this raid in one session. You
God.
don't need to not die. You can die, which is good because this raid is very buggy.
Oh,
And you will die.
Oh, dude, the tethers. Oh my god, the
Yep.
tethers drove me insane.
So the crazy thing with this one, we actually didn't have any issues, despite pretty much everyone in this raid being pretty new to raiding, outside of the person who was like guiding us. And me having like never done it before, never done Garden of Salvation. I don't have competitive raid gear. That was fine. We had no problems. So one of my friends was worried that we wouldn't be able to get the div puzzles done correctly because hunters don't have the movement options to kind of cheese a lot of the strategies that the other classes had, but we did them fine. It was no issues. It's a cool thing. Like, I like the idea of the div run because you have to do these little side puzzles with these tethers that generally are very understandable and pretty easy to do. Until we get to one where everyone has to like move in sync to create a pattern with a line between them. And we had like two people that just didn't understand.
That's how it goes.
And we were there for like 45 minutes doing this, and it was really funny because 4 of us were fine, 2 of us were not. And we kept getting stopped and like having to reshuffle to make their job easier. No shade on them because they're good at the game. They just had a rough night. Really funny. We were fine until the final encounter. The final encounter is like this boss that will destroy platforms. And this is, by the time we get to the boss, it had been about 3 hours. We started at 8. We got to the final boss at like 11:15 or something. Yeah, we were doing fine. That's a good pace for like a big raid. We got plenty of rewards from the stuff, so nobody's frustrated at this point. We're all having a good time. We're joking around. We don't need to like clear comms or anything. We get to this final encounter, and we're pretty confident. We're like, we've been doing good. Our raid leader man is like, hey, this one's the buggy one. This is the one that is super luck based because you need to make sure things spawn at the right cadence. We have to like send people through portals to go get things to come back, and if you don't get the right amount of things, you die. If you don't go through the portal fast enough, you die. If you let all the platforms get destroyed, you're probably gonna die. You might not, but you're probably gonna. If you mistime something, everyone dies. If you don't kill the things because they have a barrier that you can't break, well, you mistimed something and now you're all gonna die. It is super tight to do. And we were on this encounter for like a full 2 hours. We started at like 11:15, 11:30 by the time we were at this encounter. By the time we were done, it was 1:50 in the morning. for one fight that maybe takes like 20 minutes a try at the most, if we do it really poorly. So it had been like 6 tries. We literally, the one that we finished the raid, we won, on the run where we were like, we're all so tired, we can't do another one, and then we're gonna have to do the whole thing again because you have to do it in one run. We managed to beat it on that run, which
Thank God
was great, but that was because people had said this is the worst raid in the game to me repeatedly. I was like, it can't be that bad. It wasn't for 90% of the encounters in this raid. It was totally fine. I liked the tether idea. It was buggy, but it wasn't the worst thing if you knew how to use it. By the time you get to that final boss and like go through that a couple of times, it is the worst fight I think I have ever done. And the problem is I can see so clearly why they thought this was cool and why they were like, this is a great idea. Because it is, but it doesn't work. Like, it requires on timing that you have Destiny. Just you don't have the information you have in a Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft raid available to you to like time things, and that's the big issue is you can't really time a mechanic in Destiny the same way because they're so randomized at that point that it's super difficult to do.
And it's hard to explain how difficult it can be to line up tether stuff properly without you just playing it, but it's so like picky about distance and like how far you can stand away from someone else to keep the tether going, and there's not a lot of visuals, there's not a lot of like...
The problem on this encounter specifically is the enemies can kind of mix into the background on this because it's all like Vex and it's very gray, and the enemies will be covered in these like white gray shields, and they become kind of hard to see because of the fact that they have those shields. The shields are meant to make them really visible, but in this one encounter, because it's so covered in like the white Vex stuff, it can blend into the background and make them harder to see. You have to watch out because if they get to these pylons, they'll blow up and make it so you won't be able to do damage to the boss, and that will just kill you because you won't be able to kill the boss.
More pylons.
Yep. It is one of the most frustrating encounters I've done, and like I've done Savage raiding in Final Fantasy XIV. I've done old school WoW raiding way back when. This was worse. It was better until that point. I was having a great time, but at that point, it is one of the worst things that I've done. It was really not fun.
It does what a lot of like bad raid mechanics do, where you have to do things in a very specific order. There is absolutely no room for error whatsoever, and that's kind of what the Leviathan was, where you have to do this at this specific moment, you have to do this at this specific moment. There's no room for error at all, and if you mess up even a tiny bit on your timing, you have to start all over again, and it becomes not fun because then you're just following a very specific set of instructions that you're not even 100% sure if you're doing correctly if you've never played it before.
Yep, that's what it feels like. It's not. I hesitate to say that it's not a well-designed encounter because I think the paper design of it is good, but the functionality is not. It's just Destiny's not the game that this type of encounter works best in, which is a shame because I think it was a good idea and it just really did not work out the way they thought it would. So
well, again, because it's like if you miss one thing, they don't allow you to correct mistakes at all. Like those portals that show up on the side only show up for a certain amount of time. They don't allow you to go back in and get the orbs that you need, which is really frustrating. If that was just something where it's like, oh, these like moments where the portals on the sides are going to be open as long as you need them. We're not only going to do it a certain amount of times. I feel like that would have solved so many issues because it would have been way more.
Yeah, if you didn't have to manually time the portals, it would have been so much easier because that's the biggest challenge is knowing like when these two people should be gone and when these two people should be gone and when the 4 people need to be here, like when you need to avoid part of it because whenever you're tethered, you can't shoot the gun, and that becomes a huge problem. So yeah, it's a crazy encounter that gets really wacky, and could have been really cool, but just kind of doesn't nail it. Yeah, it's interesting. One final thing I wanted to mention. I have not been able to play Xenoblade 3 until today because family's here, and I committed to doing a full playthrough of Xenoblade 3 for this channel. So I started that earlier today. We played about 2 hours of this game. Brett this game is so far up your alley.
Okay.
In the first 2 hours,
Oh.
there is so much of me just going like, what is happening? Like, what is the logic behind this? Because the whole 10-year lifespan thing, all these crazy ideas, wild. I love it. It's so insane. It is one of the craziest like sets of backstory that I think a game has had in a long time. And I am so curious to where this is going, because I have no idea at the start of what this is going to end.
How's it running on the Switch?
It's running perfectly on the Switch. It doesn't look 100% great all the time. The characters look way better than the other Xenoblade games. I think this is the best looking Xenoblade game on Switch. And Xenoblade 1 Definitive at least looks pretty good. 2 is very blurry, but character model wise it looks very good. 3 hasn't had no issues, and there's like consistently 20 things on screen at once, and the Switch is not having any hiccups. Like, I'm not super far in, but I've been into some, like, the starter battle it puts you in is very intense. There's explosions everywhere. That feels like a pretty good state of this is a benchmark for the rest of the game, and it worked perfectly. It feels way smoother than Xenoblade 2 did, because Xenoblade 2 had a lot of like frame timing issues that didn't impact the game, but were a little bit annoying. 3 does not have that problem. But Brett, the thing that made me think of you and probably Xenogears and other things like that, like it, and the weird Star Ocean thing, these characters have clocks in their eyes called flame clocks that when they kill a thing, their flame clocks fill up and you get a damage boost. This is a mechanic in the game at the start. You have this big clock on screen. They're like, this is going to tick down over time. You need to kill things or else you're going to get like major debuffs. And the whole time your main character's going like, this is weird. He's at the point where he's like fought for 8 years or whatever, and he's like, this isn't how people should live. This is like not okay that we have to go kill things to fill up a clock in our eyes.
Man, he's talking about the game mechanic in the world. Man, that's crazy.
Yep. And then they use the game mechanic for the narrative, and it's really cool.
You know.
And I'm still only 2 hours in this game. It is
Strand type.
I'm kidding.
The environment of this game has reminded me most of Death Stranding.
I mean, hey, it's not a bad thing.
This is a very Brett game, and I don't know so far how much this is going to tie into Xenoblade 1 and 2. I can say as of now, it really feels like you wouldn't need to know anything from them. But there are definitely callbacks, and like a number of callbacks where it might help to have played them. Really not necessary. And if you're going to play one of them, play Xenoblade 1, because it's 10, Xenoblade 2 is like an 8. It's still really good, but
I might I might commit theft on my brother's Switch for the first and only time.
And
we'll see.
Within an hour of this game starting, there is a bath scene. It is maybe the least horny bath scene I've ever seen. It was great. It was wonderful. They're sitting there.
We're having this conversation
like,
at all.
I saw a Twitter post about this, and I am of not of two minds, but my reaction has it's a 2-stage launch where the first thing is like, oh well, I'm glad because that would be weird if it was. But my second part of the reaction is, what the hell are these people watching where that's their reaction to a good like non-creepy bath scene? Like what? Like literally just watch like My Neighbor Totoro. Like
look,
it's just so weird that that's the thing you pick up on.
Well, it's because Xenoblade games always have these scenes, and typically they have not been this relaxed. They're a little in your face, which is a shame because there's always like an important plot beat in these scenes. But Xenoblade 2, you're just the whole time it's like, all right, I'm dealing with it. This feels like it was directed by a CW show director.
But
I'm not here for it.
Insult.
It's not good. That's not a good thing.
I mean, there's plenty of people it doesn't bother. It didn't particularly bother me in Xenoblade 2, but I definitely prefer the way 3 handles it, especially because it's happening right after they're all going like, we just killed a lot of people and need to like reflect on that. But yeah, it did a really good job of establishing characters. The whole role of like Offseers being this person that turns the when you kill something, its body turns into stone, and you steal the life out of its eyes, right? Yeah, that happens, and then you need to flute sing them to Valhalla or something like that, and then people like you more because you flute sung them to Valhalla.
Of course.
It is.
I just did that to someone yesterday. Of course.
Yep. And the
You
whole
lead a
thing
more
is like people
interesting
are
life than
looking
me,
forward to living 10 years because when they're 10, they go sacrifice themselves in front of their queen and turn into light. It's so crazy. I love it so much.
That is a Xeno game. It definitely fits the bill.
Well, this is like way weirder than Xenoblade 1 and 2 both kind of hit this point at a certain point. Xenoblade 3 starts there. Which means I'm so interested to where it goes. I have it ready to go. I just gotta decide if I'm gonna play that or Trails in the Sky first. That's it. That's the games list. Unless there's anything else, we're at time. We've done our podcast time.
Probably
now we can
talk about Halo Infinite anymore, so we'll just
go on parole until next week. When
I mean, I can talk about video games all night, but eventually I gotta go to bed.
Yeah, eventually sleep has to happen. So we'll be back next week. As always, the double one stuff happens. Xenoblade Chronicles playthrough is going to be going live pretty much every day. There's going to be an episode going up. Some of them are longer than others because it hit me with the go watch 10 cutscenes in a row and then combat encounter with a boss and then 5 more cutscenes. And I was like, I gotta go.
Sounds like Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah, a little bit.
A lot like that. All right. Next week.
Can't wait for something horrible to happen in between now and then. That we will have to talk about.
Because it will. Oh yeah, next week.
Game Club's episode.
Next week or the week after is the Games Club episode.
It's gonna have to be week after because I'm gonna be gone.
Okay, then we'll do week after, yeah.
Or this coming week.